Hello, hello. Welcome to episode 32 of the We All Serve podcast. I am your co-host, Shalom Klein, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be with my partner in baldness, Angel Torres. Thank you so
Yep.
much for joining us over here.
We
Yet
are
again.
follically challenged.
I like it. It's good. It's good. Oh, I don't have it over here. I just took a new photo, and it's good. The photographer on base here played a game and took another soldier's hair and put it on my head and sent it to me, and it was everybody got a kick out of it. It was pretty entertaining.
Oh, that's nice. Is that something they do with the new guys or something?
It was just something that they do with guys that they want to mess with, and I guess
okay.
I'm just easy to mess with. So there we go.
Hey, you're a good-hearted guy, and you take it like a champ. You don't get it under your skin, so that's
That is
pretty
very
awesome.
true. That is very true. So how have you been? We're in February. We're at episode 32. We're rocking and rolling. It's really exciting. I know you and I have been chatting over the past few days about, really we're hearing feedback from folks all over. People know about this podcast. It's kind of cool.
It's crazy, and I talked to a couple of veterans, and they said, we heard about the podcast, and we're really interested in what you guys are doing and how you're differentiating yourselves. I'm like, well, it's pretty easy. We just don't BS and make things flowery and tell people things that they're not. If it's something that's not going well, we'll tell them it's going well. If it's we think that someone's really awesome and doing the right things, then we're gonna grandstand him and evangelize for them. And it's all about our listeners and our viewers and what they get out of it, because we're one of you.
Totally. And all of our people are all doing awesome things. I know today we're probably going to talk about a couple of awesome organizations, and everybody that we have had on and will be having on are people that are making a difference and giving back, which is really the theme over here. And hey, I forgot to tell you,
not
actually,
all are veterans, though. And let's be clear about that. We want to have people that are not veterans that are still serving their communities, whether you're a cop, whether you're a firefighter, whether you're working on legislation to make people's lives better. That's still service, and we still want to encourage people to be on the show and hear and have a voice.
Absolutely. That's the theme. We all serve. So actually, I forgot to tell you that I think we're going to have our first Space Force guest on. I've been working on this. Yeah, I just had a conversation actually right before we went live, and very excited about that. And it was interesting. I actually had a conversation with a fellow officer in the Army that's thinking about transferring into the Space Force. It's very interesting, and I think it's becoming clear that the new administration is likely going to keep the Space Force around. There is a tremendous need. I mean, we might make jokes and things like that, but the reality is that as I'll be curious to talk to our guest in a couple of minutes to hear his thoughts on the matter. But I think what the issue that the Space Force has is going to be a matter of educating the world of what they do, and that it's not all just a joke.
Yeah, the setting the standard and their brand is really important. But one thing I agree. One thing I want to call to light is most presidents that whether wherever you sit on the political realm has no bearing on that. They're like what's their legacy? What did they do during their administration? Lyndon Johnson did a lot. Truman, all these different presidents, and during the Trump administration, they launched Space Force, and it was kind of a laughing point. But I think in 40, 50 years, when it's standing up and things are actually happening in space, and like, God, we actually got that. It's a good thing that happened. I think it won't be a laughing matter. I mean, it needs to happen. I mean, the Air Force. Thank God, our first guest, or our guest today is an Air Force, and we finally have an Air Force veteran speaking today. And back when the Army Air Corps was around, Air Force, what do you need to do that for? We have the Army Air Corps. What do you need Air Force for? So I'm sure there's the same dialogue that happened back then that's happening now.
Yeah, we're just going to have to get rid of, I have to say that when I went through some training, the cadence in the Army, we were still making fun of the Space Force. So it's going to take a little while for that to be pushed out, get away a little bit, but it will take some time. They're doing good stuff, and they're pretty darn smart. So got to give them credit on that. They're probably going to be the smartest people of all of the branches. So we shouldn't be making fun.
The requirement to join them is you have to know how to code. Like, you have to have some kind of background in coding. I mean, that's That's huge. I mean, I
Yeah.
couldn't tell you two things about
Yeah,
those.
we are disqualified.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
Recruiters
like
don't call us.
crayons and rocks. That's it.
Yeah. So before we bring in our guest, and very excited for this conversation. Just wanted to, as always, give a shout out to anybody. Of course, we appreciate our listeners and fans, and encourage everybody to click that like, share, subscribe button. Because we are rocking and rolling, and more episodes coming live each and every week. Next week, very, very excited for our conversation with Adam Carr, who is the executive director of the Save a Warrior Project, and that's sure to be an amazing conversation because they're doing awesome stuff. And I know, Angel, you have some exciting geography. I know you wanted to talk. I think it was. Trying to remember because we got all of our guests. We schedule weeks in advance, and so you wanted to rib him. I think on some University of Ohio something or other. I don't know, but should be fun.
Ohio State something or other. Yeah,
something like that. There we go. So Adam Carr, we're going to have him on next Tuesday. So make sure you are marking your calendar.
Oh, yeah, they got smacked down by Alabama. I remember who it was. They got their butts kicked by SEC team.
There you go. That's what it was. Yeah, totally. So let's bring in our guest over here, Brendan O'Brien. Very excited to bring on. We were joking before we went live over here that there's three of us on the screen, and clearly the smartest one on the screen is Brendan O'Brien, who's a retired United States Air Force Lieutenant Colonel and Director at Kin and Carta. There, he supports clients' digital transformation initiatives for the past 6 years, and prior to retiring from the Air Force, Brendan began his career of service attending the Air Force Academy. And during 20 plus years of a very illustrious career, he filled roles as an intel officer, again, smart guy, and an A-10 pilot. During his Air Force career, he deployed to the Middle East several times, including Afghanistan, 2002 and 2010. Final tours on active duty were focused on developing the next generation of leaders as commander of the Air Force ROTC program in Chicago. And I would love to talk about that area of leadership. His career of service continued after his active duty years, and he now coordinates the Hiring Our Heroes Fellowship at Kin and Carta. And he was the communications director for the Chicago's Red, White, and Blue chapter. And after serving in a variety of leadership roles, is now a board member for the Veterans Leadership Council. He's earned his executive MBA from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University, which is, I believe, where the two of you may have met. Oh my God, he's spinning around. See, I was just going on and on just to see whether he would fall asleep or get just totally a boost of energy. And it's the boost of energy. So that's great. That's Angel. I love to see. Brendan, welcome to the program.
Hey guys, thank you. Really glad to be here. And I think I represent the Hair Force. I heard you guys talking about your follicle challenges, so perhaps I can pay it forward someday by that way. Yeah,
you mainlining Rogaine or what?
Anything they sell. These minor side effects. We won't talk about them.
I was just telling Shalom the story about how we met when I was fairly new to Chicago. We just kind of got into helping out and volunteering for things with the Veteran Leadership Council, and ran into, I think you were like a year ahead of me or something like that at school. And then Alex Panosian connected us, and we just started doing stuff together. And it was just this really unique environment because you're from such a different background than I am. And yet we kind of worked, and we were kind of both devoted to service and helping. And we're like, well, I can do this. Okay, cool. Let's go do some stuff.
Yeah, that was definitely one thing I think we shared in common, was this kind of dedication or commitment to paying it forward to veterans, helping out others that, because you and I have both been helped by other veterans and civilians throughout our transitions to second career. So we may have had our disagreements on approaches here and there, but like you've always said, yin and yang, right?
Yep. We always say that Brandon was the analytical strategic guy, and I was back with the pom-poms, and a milk carton, just going, yeah, let's do this. Come on, Brandon.
So I would love to start. in reflecting on what I know of your career, Brendan, it's which quite an illustrious career, which is pretty exciting. You started obviously by entering in the Air Force Academy, and the way you ended your career was in leading ROTC efforts. So very interesting, sort of how it comes full circle, and you helping to commission future Air Force officers. So why did you decide to go to the Air Force Academy? Was it something in the family? Give us a little bit of that history and background.
Sure. Yeah. For me, I think it was just a desire to fly. So I graduated high school in 1990, to give my age out. So I grew up in Pensacola, Florida when I was younger. So that's where the Blue Angels are based. So we saw them flying around a lot. And then, of course, Top Gun comes out when I'm in high school. And my oldest brother and I really just wanted to fly. So he also went to the Air Force Academy. Unfortunately, didn't get to fly. I followed his track there. So for me, it was initially a desire to fly was the reason to go to the Air Force Academy. Also just to be in Colorado. It's a beautiful state. So that was definitely pretty appealing. And then, by the time you graduate, it's really not just the desire to fly, but the desire to serve, which is really what keeps you going.
Awesome. That's awesome. And it's interesting. How have things changed from starting your career and sort of how you commissioned into the Air Force, and sort of where you see things or where you saw things in your last duty assignment?
Yeah. So the last assignment was the ROTC job. So running the detachment in Chicago, and we were at Illinois Tech, but we covered 17 other schools in the Chicagoland area. Wow. And so it was, I'll tell you what was the most surprising to me. Seeing these cadets, these ROTC cadets, made me realize how much of a slacker I was at the Air Force Academy. I thought I was like all American, doing all these things, really just going above and beyond with everything I was doing there. And then I meet these kids, right, that are 18, 19, 20 years old, and just working 2 jobs, working on 2 degrees, and doing all this volunteer work or whatever it was. I was just always impressed by them. So, the next generation of the Air Force is in great hands. I think perhaps like the biggest shift is like, now that I've been in the kind of the corporate world for 6 years, I think it's similar. It's just kind of this shift towards more kind of openness. And I definitely miss like the operating environment of the military at times, of kind of the quick decision making and the command and control and the accountability, and things are often very more crisp than in the civilian world. But there's definitely a shift towards kind of inclusiveness and openness, and I think that's happening in the military, and for good reason. It's happening just in the private world as well.
That's interesting. I think about your when you mentioned transition and your transition story, and I will tell you, being frank, I applied to business school for a number of reasons, but mostly because I wanted to mitigate the risk with my transition and have options. And I didn't want to do a job that I had to do. I wanted to have a career that I loved to do after the military. And was your thought process around the same?
Yeah, I'd say mine was like I was retired and now I was job hunting, and I knew I wanted to get into tech, and found a great firm to land with. But my goal was like to just drink from the fire hose for 2 years, right? So I knew after 20 years of leading and serving in the military, I could run operations, I could manage projects, programs, lead people. But I couldn't tell you EBITDA from gross margin or any of those things that happen in the business world, right? So so for me, it was about just accelerating the transition. So I wanted to work and go to school at the same time. So those 2 years were just like they were for you, very busy. Family made a lot of sacrifices, but the goal was to just immerse myself in the private sector. And for me, the executive program I targeted that because of the strong relationship you have with your fellow classmates. You're with the same cohort for
the opportunity to learn from them and ask those hard questions. Yeah. So
now, like you and I have, within our cohorts, I have a WhatsApp group with my class, and it's like I have 50 business advisors at my fingertips anytime I want to talk to them.
Global business advisors.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But for me, it wasn't necessarily about like finding the next role after the executive program. It was more just about learning as much as I could and then exploring options. And I was fortunate enough to like land with Kin and Carta, which at the time was Solstice Mobile, and we have a great culture, growing like a rocket ship. So it's just a great place to be. So I don't really have any desire to move on from this company because it's a great culture. And so I really was never really looking in that direction, as I entered in the MBA program. Although, being human, you think you keep your eyes and ears open, but I was really focused just on learning and from my classmates and from the awesome professors.
But you knew tech was definitely in the plan. It was definitely part of the path.
Yeah.
Even early on.
Yeah. I'd say like not early on. Like, whenever like there's like a service member who's getting out and somebody connects them with me and I just shoot the crap with them, the biggest thing I tell them is like, figure out what you want to do first. Right. So, and I tell them the way I did that is you did all this soul searching and read some books that people recommended. And then I kind of came up with, I don't know, somebody's probably already thought of this, so it's probably not original, but I call it like the cocktail party like scenario. Like if you're at a cocktail party and, there's these little clusters of conversations that are happening all night long, and one might be about like renewable energy, which is a sector I was considering, and tech was another sector I was considering. It was like, well, which conversation am I just going to like gravitate to for the whole night? Like if there was a conversation on, the 3 or 4 sectors I was considering, I knew the one I would probably just stay in all night because I'd be most interested and engaged would be tech. And so that was kind of like the epiphany moment for me, is like just that simple mental exercise made me think like, yeah, that's probably where I should focus. And at the time, it was 2014, I wanted to focus on companies that were building mobile apps. And so Solstice Mobile, which is now Kin and Carta, was where I ended up targeting.
I have actually never heard the cocktail party analogy, but that is a keeper. That's pretty cool. And it makes so much sense. Where do people that you find intellectually stimulating, what are they talking about? Go hang out with those guys, because that's the career you would need to pursue. Some guys it's finance, some guys it's VC, some guys it's oil and new energy. Yeah.
So what I usually tell these men and women that are separating is do that, but just talk to a ton of people. Like if you're thinking about several industries, just reach out on LinkedIn, find people, ask for 10 or 15 minutes to talk to them, ask them. And I was stealing this from a Marine that now works at Kin and Carta through the Hiring Our Heroes Fellowship. A great question he asked when he was interviewing was, tell me about the best day here and tell me about the worst day here. So that's now something I've stolen from him. And I tell like people when they're doing these like informational interviews before they get out of like, what should I be doing with my life next? Is like, talk to people in different roles or industries that you're interested in, ask them what their best days like and ask them what their worst days like and why. And then you'll get a much better idea of what might be appealing to you.
And the culture.
Yeah. And the culture.
Because that could be a culture. That could be a culture question, well, because everyone around me just is renting stress and everything's a knee jerk. And that tells you everything you need to know about the organization.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you went into the Air Force, did you expect to make 05, to spend 20 years in the Air Force? Is that sort of the aspiration that you had? And did you have any mentors or leaders along the way that you can point to?
So for the first part of that, when I went in, I don't think I was necessarily targeting any duration of service. I just wanted to go in and fly and actually, when I did not get a pilot slot out of the Air Force Academy, this was in '94 when kind of the bathtub was happening. And Intel was my second career choice, actually, before a lot of other rated career fields. So I was super excited about intelligence. Like that's an amazing career field. You could, have a 30-year career and never do the same thing twice. Like there's just so much variety in that career field.
Or you can roll over to the alphabet police and go work for any of the alphabet,
there you go.
lettered, organizations.
Yeah. A good buddy of mine who actually went to law school is now working for Facebook in a similar capacity. But so yeah.
But
so
alphabet police, I meant like FBI, CIA.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sure there.
No, it's cool. I just want to clarify.
Yeah. I didn't really have aspirations for any particular length of service. Quite mechanically, by the time I got a pilot training slot, I'd already been in 3 years. And so by the time I graduated from pilot training with an 8-year commitment, I was going to be at the 12 or 13 year point anyways. So
over the hump.
Yeah, over like a hump there. So like, so there was obviously like, hey, 7 more years and I'm eligible for retirement, which is a great security blanket for myself and my family. no matter what I choose to do with my second career. But really, the main reason is I was just still enjoying what I was doing, right? All my buddies at that time that were younger, because they weren't late rated like me, were leaving for the airlines. And, if I had been their age, I might have done the same thing because the airlines were hiring like gangbusters at that time. But I was still having a lot of fun flying and serving. So I just wanted to keep doing it. So that's why I stayed in terms of like mentors. There's like the one leader I'd say that sticks out, and I wouldn't say he's like a close mentor, but we had a strong relationship. And I respected him the most because he was the most clear with his expectations, the most direct with his feedback. And the thing I like that he did the best, and I've heard this kind of called like the crap umbrella, right? Like he put up the umbrella over his organization, right? So I was in a job where like different staff and headquarters agencies would be reaching out to me and trying to give me taskers, and he was pretty frank. He's like, hey, if it didn't come from me, don't do it. Let them talk to me. And he wasn't trying to be like a power hungry person. He was just actually saying like, I can't run an organization if half the people in my organization are being off on random taskers from people outside my organization without my knowledge. So he was just a really inspirational leader, the type of person that you're around for 5 minutes and you're energized for the next 5 months, kind of like Angel, just really pumps you up and cares about you and asks a lot of questions. And so that's Pat Malachowski. I think he's now working for Boeing or in some think tank. He's a super smart guy. He was I think a 1 or 2 star by the time he's retired. So definitely like a leader, we all have in our military careers, those like not so good people that you are examples of what not to do, and the great people that are the examples of what to do. And so he's that latter category for me for sure.
That's awesome. We were talking about transition. We touched on a little bit, but I want to talk about like some of the tools that are there now weren't available for you and I. Like the Skill Bridge program is an incredible opportunity. I had a chance to speak with Joe Wallace and his team at Microsoft about the things that they're doing. And I'd like to hear more about what you're doing, championing it for King Carta.
Sure. It is a really great program. And I remember like I retired in 2014, and I don't know if the Skills Bridge program existed at that time or if it was just kind of coming up, but I remember hearing about people asking their commanders, like, in their final 6 months, can I take some time? There's this corporate fellowship I want to do. And, the answer is almost always no. So it's so fantastic that this program exists. And so for those that aren't familiar with it, like essentially if you're in your last 6 months of active duty, you can go do a 3-month, like a 12-week fellowship, corporate fellowship. And so the Skills Bridge program, I think, is the DoD kind of vehicle, but all these different agencies take advantage of it. And the one we partner with at King Carta is Hiring Our Heroes, which is put on by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. So they run it. I think they're in 7 or 8 different kind of metros now, including Chicago and Denver, New York. And so, when I started to learn about that, me and another veteran at King Carta, who's actually still a 06 reservist in the Navy, started talking to them about it. Very surprised. So if anybody's listening who's thinking about standing up this program at your company, there's 0 paperwork. There's 0 like legal obligation. It's all like handshake agreement that, you're going to do right by these fellows. If they do well in your company, you're going to hire them into a position.
What's the MOU? I think they have you apply. The company has to apply to establish. Once the company establishes it through the individual service, and every service runs it differently. But most base commanders will run a memorandum of understanding, which is, you're right, no paperwork whatsoever. Just run your request. Yeah.
So we just started working with Chris Erbauer, who runs the program in Chicago, about 2 years ago. And, it's really 0 risk. And so the way I pitched it internally to the company is like, hey, we're going to get a bunch of resumes to look at of awesome people. We can select the top ones and interview them. We're not committed to anything. Like, we can interview all the ones we want to interview. And then we can pick the top and, offer them a fellowship. We just have to be able to commit to hiring them if they do well. And so we don't have to pay them because we legally can't pay them while they're here. So all we invest literally a few grand each for each fellow. We can invest in some training for them, and some, travel if they need to go to a client site or something like that, pre-COVID, of course. But it's such a low investment to create a great talent pipeline into our company, and it's helping these people transition.
Yeah, it's zero risk with the option to buy.
Exactly.
I mean, the only expenditure is spend the time training, having some guy train them, our young woman train them and show them the ropes. And then it's a twofold thing for the veteran, because then they get exposure to your company and find out if it's a good fit for them. So that they're not going to a company like a manufacturing or wherever, any organization, and their personalities don't fit and their culture don't fit. And then they wonder, am I a failure? You know, what's going on? I have all these thoughts. Like, no, man, you're supposed to try things. You're supposed to try this. And if it works, you know, the option to buy.
Yeah, no, that's great. And we're a consulting firm, and consulting is not for everybody. So it's great for them to get to do a test drive with us too, right? To see what life as a consultant is like. Yeah. Because it's very different than being on the client side.
So you spent time, 20 years, running around, flying all over the place. Any particular moments that that you can call out that, and it's sort of, we talked about people, but things that helped you, lessons learned along the way that helped you in your transition?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's certainly all kinds of parallels from being a pilot, and specifically a fighter pilot, to that are disciplines that I still apply to this day. So I won't go into all of those, but there's, one of them that I learned from one of our weapons officers. When I was upgrading to be a flight lead, he had this construct for, putting together the flight brief. And it was, what are your objectives? And then you break down the brief into the target, which is like, what is the target we're going after? What's the weather in that area? What's the terrain in that area? The threats, what are the air-to-air, surface-to-air threats that might be in the area that we're going to encounter today, and how we're going to deal with those? What are our tactics? And then, and then the weapons that we can deploy. So target, threats, weapons, and tactics. And I actually use that almost in like when I'm doing just regular business planning, with a client or for myself.
Oh, wow.
Because you can break down everything into that construct. Like every good business initiative should have some clear objectives, right? Hopefully there's some ROI there, or some really good corporate reason, like risk reduction or speed, whatever the goals are for the business. You have a target. You should have some measurable results. You have threats to success, different challenges, obstacles you might encounter. You have weapons at your disposal, like, the talent and the technology and the processes that you can employ. And then you put it all together into a playbook and you go execute. So I don't call it that when I'm talking to my colleagues at work, because I don't want to confuse them and make them think they're just talking to some crusty old pilot who can't let go. But at the same time, in the back of my head, that checklist is running. So that's one I still use to this day. And I'd say the other one is like, a failure story, right? We learn more from our failures, I think, than we do from our successes. So kind of the low point of my flying career was probably in Afghanistan in 2002. I was up for my first like combat coded, like full combat sortie in Afghanistan. And it was a time where there was really nothing happening. We were burning holes in the sky. It was very boring. And I just fell into like the deployed expeditionary environment, like kind of just having a good time, playing cards, smoking cigars, shooting the crap with my buddies. And I wasn't prepared. Yeah, complacency, exactly. So, and I went in to check in with the weapons officer. Probably a bad idea to do that with the weapons officer the night before. He had several F-bombs and all kinds of not so kind words for me. Every one of them I deserved. And he told me to get out of his sight. And so I still get emotional. I've told this story enough times now because it's kind of a formative story. So to Angel's point, like I was complacent, and thank God nothing eventful happened the next day because I probably wasn't really ready. So that is like I got a get out of jail free card that day, and nobody died as a result. So ever since, like it's just a part of my fabric now. It's like never get complacent. If you're working, you're working. And when it's time to play, it's time to play. But when it's time to work, get down to business.
Were any of your flight plans, did they involve shooting down a 100-foot gorilla and saving Dwayne Johnson?
No, I can't talk about that. Actually, that was
okay. The joke is that movie Rampage. I remember when Rampage came out, Brandon's going, dude, that's my plane. That's my plane, man. We're like lighting it up. I was like, okay, now I know.
The A-10 was kind of like the bastard stepchild of the Air Force for a long time, but like ever since Desert Storm, it's been sexy, and after OEF, it was sexy again. So all these Hollywood movies were pulling the A-10 in, which was great. Some of my buddies got to fly, in some of those movies.
It's a hot screamer, cool. Man.
Yeah.
That's great. I just want to thank you for coming on and sharing your story with us and talking to us today, because I have a very close-knit group of friends. I mean, I have a lot of associates, but very tight-knit group of friends, and I'm privileged to call you one of them.
Angel, have you ever thought about why?
Yeah, because he's so different than me. Because he totally thinks no, seriously, because he thinks different than me, thinks better than me, and then clearly thinks better of myself than I do. But that we can have open conversations, and he just educates me on things. Like when we first took over as co-presidents, I joke about this all the time with people. I said, Brendan is sitting there working on, what was the software you were using? We're doing project management and laying out stuff. He's doing it all on his computer, right? So I have a whiteboard. I'm drawing animal crackers and saying, okay, we're going to do this, and here's what we're going to accomplish, and all these bubbles. And he's already got like 10 steps ahead, but we think the same way towards things, just a different approach. So I think that's part of it.
No, it was great working with you in the VLC, and still working with you on the board. You know, like, the yin and yang joke is totally true. You know, when I could get bogged down in the details and the operational planning or for something, Angel's still up at 20,000 feet, making sure that we're focused on the right outcomes, the right purpose. You know, and Angel was the guy working the room and, you know, raising money and building support, you know, while I was more operational focused, I think, a lot of the time. So worked out really well to be partnered up.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of veterans benefited from that. I mean, I've heard stories about that a lot of veterans in the VLC miss it, and they're like, "Man, we really miss that dynamic and having that." So we're not looking to keep running it forever. We're looking to bring the new crop, a new group of hard chargers in who have ideas and want to do things. So if you're interested, please get involved with the Veteran Leadership Council, and it's a group of great military leaders that are in business and corporate America and government that just want to have that camaraderie, have those opportunities, and have that dialogue in a very informal setting. So it's a recipe for success in itself.
Yeah, I like the VLC is, I think the way you put it is really good. It's like, it is an informal setting. Even when we have the big kind of formal events, they're still very informal. And veterans come out, and someday we'll be able to do these events again, right? And they make connections, right? And it's not the event itself that provides them the value. It's the connections they made at the event that turn into value later. You know, if we had another 45 minutes, I could tell you all kinds of stories about connections that were made at the VLC event that later turned into business partnerships or job offers or decisions avoided that probably would have been bad for that person's business. So that's the beauty of the VLC, right? It's not a place to come to get a handout. It's a place to come make connections and that are going to create value for you and for other people. Pay it forward.
Definitely.
Well, Brendan, agreed. Thank you for coming on, sharing your experiences, sharing a lot about your continued work. It always amazes me how there are so many people that are out there like you. And we're fortunate to get a tiny little sampling of it on We All Serve, people that have continued their service, that even after 20 years, you'd be well within your rights to move on and say, I did my part. But you've continued to stay involved and mentor and help others with the transition. And that's exciting and inspirational. And hopefully I'll come back and continue to inspire us.
Awesome. Thanks, gentlemen. Really, really great to be on the show.
Absolutely. And again, next week we're having Adam Carr, excited for that. An amazing organization doing good stuff. Former SF guy, back to Army. You gotta go, we can handle a little bit of brain power, but then we gotta go back to, to the folks that actually make it all happen. Sorry, just saying it.
That's why I flew the A-10, supporting the people that actually did shit on the ground.
That's why I'm on the ship. I go and drop off the Marines and go back out for steak and surf and turf.
No, it's good stuff. And I'll conclude with this. I actually just had a meeting with a bunch of an Air Force detachment, and we were talking about their living arrangements, and they would not when we asked where are you living on base or what the story is, they're like, oh no, we're staying in a hotel. It's like, of course.
That's right.
Of course. No surprise there.
Per diem, not carpe diem, per diem. Seize the diem.
They get hazardous duty pay when they're on an Army installation. Anything could happen. There could be bed bugs or anything.
Dependopotamuses, you don't know.
But they bring the brain power. They bring the brain power, and we're all better for it. So it's good stuff. Again, Brendan O'Brien, thank you so much for coming on. And again, press that like, share, subscribe button. Makes it easier for people to find the podcast. And make sure you put a little review. And as Angel always says, drop us a line, shoot us a comment, let us know what you're thinking.
And share. Tell someone about us. If you know a veteran that just, if you ask, why should I listen to the podcast? Well, because there are people like you that are talking to other people that are going to, open your eyes to things that you maybe didn't think about.
There you go. Angel says it well. All right. Thank you, gents. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. And to all of our listeners, we will see you next week.